Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the salt-stained boots of a Viking shipwright, or what's left of one. You shuffle through cool sand that still holds the day's last warmth, each step squeaking like a mouse trapped in a grain sack. The air tastes like iron and seaweed, the kind of breeze that carves wrinkles into oak and sailors alike. Fair warning, if your idea of a good time involves indoor plumbing or not smelling like fermented herring, you probably won't survive this story. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Let's map where insomnia's biting hardest tonight. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your boots sink deeper as the tide retreats, wet fabric clinging to your calves like a needy child. That jagged shape ahead isn't driftwood. It's the Longship's spine jutting from the dusk, 17 steps closer. And your lungs tighten, breath sinking with the rasp of waves, dragging pebbles back into the dark. Vikings built these ships to flex, with the sea's tantrums, ribs of ash bending instead of breaking. Fun fact, some sagas mention berserkers chewing henbane leaves before battle, though whether that caused their rage or just really bad trips, historians still argue. The keel groans as you approach, a sound felt in your molars. Your shadow stretches toward the ship, finger by finger, until it touches the prow carved into a snarling beast. The dragon's eyes are gone, eaten by worms or stolen by some long-dead thief. You lean in, squinting, salt crystals glittering on its muzzle like frozen drool. Ever heard of the Ulfbert swords? Crusaders thought Viking steel was forged by demons. Turns out they just had better dirt for smelting. Wind snakes through the shattered mast, playing a tune on splintered wood. Your hand finds a rivet colder than a witch's kneecap, its iron pitted by centuries of pretending to be a rock. The sail would have been wool-soaked in horse fat, stinking to high Valhalla, but tough as troll hide. You wipe your palm on your tunic, a gesture older than the ship itself. Sand shifts beneath you, the beach alive, and sulking at your intrusion. The Oarlock silhouette hooks the fading light, a broken jaw waiting to bite. You kneel, and the world narrows to splinters, and the sting of brine in paper-cut cracks. Some swear they've seen Viking ships rise at midnight, ghost crews rowing toward battles that dried up like puddles. Don't look toward the dunes. You might spot a shadow holding its breath. Night creeps up your sleeves now, the horizon bruised purple and restless. Your knife finds a rusted pin lodged in the oarlock, its protests muffled by the tide's hiss. One sharp twist, and it comes free, leaving a hole that hums like a muted horn. Did you know longships could sail in just 3 feet of water? Raiders loved surprising monks who thought the river was too shallow for wrath. A gull screams, its cry carved into 5 sharp syllables. You glance up, expecting a specter, but it's just a bird judging your pathetic human hands. The first stars poke through the haze, pinpricks in a lead gray cloak. Your fingers tremble not from cold, but the weight of touching something that outlived its gods. Scholars still debate whether Vikings navigated with sunstones or just really hated getting lost. The ship sighs as you withdraw, a gust rattling through its ribs like a deathbed rattle. You count 8 planks split clean through, each crack a map of lightning frozen in wood. The sea whispers louder now, urging you to turn back, to let rot finish its quiet feast. But your satchel holds oakum and stubbornness, the same tools used by a trillion forgotten craftsmen. Moonlight bleeds across the sand, the beach turned into a chessboard of light and shadow. You press your forehead to the ship's flank, and for a heartbeat, it feels warmer than it should. The tides returning, each wave's edge fizzing like mead poured too fast. Your thumb brushes a rune carved near the keel. It spells strength. Or maybe stubborn fool. Time to find out. Footprints trail behind you, already fading, as the sand remembers it's supposed to swallow everything. You unroll oiled leather tools clinking like a drunk's coin purse. The wind pauses, holding its breath, as you choose the first chisel. Somewhere beyond the breakers, a seal barks, though it's been 80 winters since real seals haunted this cove. Your knuckles whiten. The ship waits. The tide licks your shins, cold shock snapping your mind into focus. Kneeling here feels sacred, the way sand conforms to your knees like a grudging prayer cushion. Your knife finds the Oarlock's split seam, wood grain weeping salt crystals. Historians confirm Viking longships used overlapping planks, clinker-built to flex with raging seas. This one hulks low in the shallows, its ribs visible like a beached whale's skeleton. A rasping groan escapes the mechanism as you probe it, sound bouncing off wet stones downshore. Your thumb catches on an old repair, hastily patched, with walrus hide gone brittle. Boat builders often stuffed gaps with horsehair and seal fat, a nautical filling older than English kings. The iron bands, halfway fused to the wood, rust bleeding into oak like a botched tattoo. You wonder if the original crew cursed this rickety pivot, their shoulders straining against its jitters. The wind shifts, brine stings your eyes as you dig out a leather pry bar. Someone once told you Vikings soaked their ropes in rancid butter for waterproofing. You almost gag remembering that fact, though your chilled hands crave any kind of grease now. The Oarlock resists, squealing like a stepped-on cat. Historians still argue whether crews broke oarlocks ritually after voyages, leaving them as sacrifices to Thor's thunder. This one seems battle-tested, its fractures mapping 100 desperate rows to shore. Splinters bite your palm as the wood finally gives. The broken piece fits in your hand, no heavier than a child's fist. You half expect runes carved underneath, some plea to Njord for calmer waters. Instead, 3 notches mark the timber, tallying repairs across generations of shaky hands. Waves hiss their disapproval, slinking back to sea with a defeated slurp. You press the shard to your tongue, taste centuries of fermented ocean and sweat. Gulls mock your progress, their cries sharpening the dusk. Your satchel yields a lump of beeswax, emergency rations pilfered from a Copenhagen museum's workshop. The label read, "Not for consumption." So naturally, you pocketed 3. Now it's mortar for this maritime jigsaw, your fingers sculpting crude caulk under the waxing moon. Footprints wash away behind you, the beach erasing evidence of your crouched vigil. Maybe that's why no one found this relic sooner. The shoreline, hoarding its secrets between tides. A distant seal barks, single note hanging in the damp air. You nod to it, fellow craftsperson in this salvage ballet, before resuming your knife's careful excavation. Twilight fades the horizon to watered ink. Somewhere beneath your knees, buried deeper than Christ's resurrection, lie the bone fragments of shorebirds who mistook tar pools for nesting grounds. The Oarlock's iron band shows the silhouette of an 8-legged horse, a symbol some experts link to Odin's steed Sleipnir. You trace its outline with a bloody fingertip, leaving permission for new myths to rust here. Your back protests, reminding you 7th century Scandinavians didn't invent chiropractors. The repaired joint clicks into place, a sound like crossed spears finally resting. 3 waves crash in rapid succession, applause from an audience of brine and sediment. You sit back on soaked heels, wiping sticky hands on a tunic that'll reek for weeks. Far out beyond the breakers, something breaches the surface. Dark curve glistening for half a breath before vanishing. Whale, shipwreck timber. Your mind serves up tailies of sea whites guarding abandoned vessels. The Oarlock sits silent now, its mouth clamped shut on whatever secrets passed through. You leave the original iron band unpolished. Let its corrosion whisper where it's been. Fresh lashings cinch the repair tighter than a thane's grip on his mead horn. Sand grinds between your teeth, reminder that urgency tastes part grit. The tides retreated further, exposing black stones pitted like lunar craters. Twilight surrenders to the plow's embrace. Silver light pools in the keel. Your work slows. The ship becomes a constellation grounded in sand. Moon's approval, the repaired Oarlock drinks moonlight, its shadow a perfect circle on the thwart. You test the pivot. It turns like a world unburdened. Gulls, mockery wings beat overhead, screeches questioning your right to repair. You toss them driftwood, their squawks softening into puzzled acceptance. Completion's bitter draft, the last peg seats flush your hands, empty of purpose. Waves lap louder now, demanding what you've remade. Departure unmade your legs, refuse the first step, sand clinging like children's fingers. The ship waits, patient as it's always been. Horizon's rebuke dawn ignites the eastern veil, the Longship whole, but going nowhere. You walk backward from the tide line, eyes watering at its perfect form. Leather creaks as the satchel gapes, tools tumbling onto salt-crusted wood. Your palm finds the hammer first, its handle smoother than a bishop's ring finger. Viking woodworkers favored yew for their tool grips, springy grain absorbing strike after bone-rattling strike. This one's seen 2 centuries of repairs, if the notches along its haft don't lie. A chisel rolls toward the longship's edge. You snatch it back with a curse. The blade shows pockmarks from prying up rivets, each dent a chapter in some dead shipwright's memoir. Rumor has it Norse smiths licked their iron to test its purity, a myth that explains the metallic tang on your tongue. Your thumb tests the edge honest steel bites skin without apology. Beeswax chunks chatter in their tin as you rummage deeper. Rotten rope fibers cling to a curved awl its tip, still smudged with last winter's pine pitch. Historians still bicker over whether urine helped temper forge-hot metals, the academic equivalent of arguing about mead stains on a beard. You drizzle fresh wax into the Oarlock's joints. Watch it pool like molten amber. The mallet feels foreign until you swing it, muscle memory overriding doubt. Cracked wood shudders as you seat the first new peg, its ashwood belly still green with sap. They used to say a well-driven nail sang in C-sharp, though your throbbing palm suggests it's more of a B-flat. Salt crusts your eyelashes as you blink, suddenly aware of the moon's scrutiny overhead. Something clinks in the satchel's depths, a forgotten file wrapped in oilcloth. Its teeth chew through rust like a starved wolf gnawing marrow. You hum an approximation of a forging song, off-key, but earnest. 3 seals bob beyond the waves now, their silhouettes keeping time with your rasp's rhythm. By the time the last lashing tightens, your fingers cramp into claws. The satchel lies gutted, its contents now part of the longship's renewed anatomy. You press a palm to the oarlock, cool metal humming with potential energy. Somewhere inland, a fox yips, applause from the shadows where history watches, patient and unblinking. Your palms flatten against the hull, the wood warm as living flesh beneath salt crust. Growth rings press into your skin like braille, decades of Scandinavian winters etched in cellulose. Viking ships often used radial sawn planks, split along the log's radius for flexibility against waves. The grain hums as you trace it, a bass note reverberating through your wrist bones. A splinter nicks your thumb, the ship's first blood-pact. You suck the wound, tasting iron and a whisper of Baltic amber. Some folks claim old ships retain echoes of their crews, laughs trapped in sap ducts beneath the caulking. The timber creaks, or is that a chuckle? Kneeling, you press your ear to the keel, cold seeping through cartilage. Sound travels differently here, the creak of rigging morphing into whale song groans. 3 warped planks form a twisted face near the waterline, not eyes staring into your hesitation. Your chisel hesitates, blade hovering over what might be a carved rune or wormhole. Easy now, you mutter words absorbed by thirsty wood. A 9th century cargo manifest found near Reykjavik lists 7 shiploads of complaints about leaky hulls, proof some things never change. The mallet taps send shockwaves up your arm, each strike prying decay from healthy fibers. Oak dust snowflakes onto your boots, carrying the tang of a forest felled when Charlemagne still ruled. Your knife reveals a channel beneath rot, an intentional groove running along the keel. Experts think these carvings funneled seawater to prevent wood warping. Others swear they're sound amplifiers for ghostly sea shanties. The groove fits your pinky perfectly, an invitation to components darker than mere hydraulics. Nightmares peel from the wood like bark visions of oarsmen bailing black water as storm lanterns drowned. Your forehead rests against the hull, sweat mingling with briny residue. Someone definitely died here. That sticky patch smells different from the rest. Cold seeps into your knees, the price of communion with drowned things. Pine resin bubbles on your portable stove, its gloss revealing the hull's true thirst. Blistering heat makes the wood gasp, pores widening to drink the golden ooze. You daub the stuff like lip balm on a first date, desperate to impress. The resin cools into amber scars, time-lapse wounds healing before your eyes. Something clatters inside the hull, a loose nail rolling toward the bilge. You press your ear tighter, inhaling mildew, and what might be centuries-old fish breath. Faint scratches suggest rodent tenants. Or maybe that's the fabled ship mice sailors blamed for vanished biscuits. The mallet's next strike rings hollow, the keel coughing up a corroded buckle. 5 crescent-shaped dents mar the inner planking, identical to stress marks from shield straps. Historians still argue whether Vikings ever lashed their gear directly to ships during storms. The academia equivalent of debating salad forks on a sinking raft. Your thumb tests the grooves, too uniform for chaos. Moonlight leaks through a knothole, projecting a distorted rune onto your forearm. You twist to match the shadow symbol, a partial alges for protection, or Issa for stagnation. The debate's pointless. It's clearly a bored shipwright's doodle from year 8 of mermaid drought. By midnight, the hull's voice changes, less wounded bear, more tipsy minstrel. Your resin-smeared hands glide over planks, feeling tremors from distant waves. The repair site pulses like a heartbeat, or maybe that's your own thrumming exhaustion. A lone gull cries, nature's quality assurance inspector, rejecting your patching technique. You slump against the ship, shoulder blades slotting between ribs of curved timber. The stars above mirror the hull's iron rivets, each silver pin holding firm against the dark. Your canteen offers lukewarm tea liquid courage for the next assault on rot. The first sip tastes like Scandinavia, birch bark, and poor life choices. Dawn's first smear of light reveals your folly. 3 mist cracks near the stern. The hull sighs, or maybe that's you as fresh resin drips into the void. Somewhere beneath your feet, the earth spins imperceptibly, the Longship's shadow stretching westward like a sundial nobody asked for. The withdrawing tide licks your boots, a cold tongue testing your resolve. You count waves like sheep, 23 heartbeats between each foamy retreat. Norse sailors timed tides using knotted ropes, 1 knot per lunar hour across waxed linen. The sand darkens where water kneels, exposing a rusted iron pin, half buried like shame. Your blade scratches at corrosion, the sound of a mouse gnawing through chainmail. Each stroke peels back centuries, flakes drifting down to color the tidepool copper. Beneath the crust hides a maker's mark, 3 interlocked rings, stamped by a smith long dust. Historians still argue whether Viking sails favored crimson dyes or plain wool, a debate as fiery as it is fruitless. Wet sand sucks at your knees, nature's quicksand, trying to claim its prize. The pin resists, its shank groaning under pressure, until salt water finally relinquishes its grip. It pops free with a metallic sigh, weighing less than a newborn's fist, yet dense with ghosts. You sniff its pitted surface, ozone and old blood, and the arrogance of north winds. 3 crabs advance in tactical formation, their sidelong scuttle judging your excavation. You flick a rust flake their way, they retreat like liquid gossip. Back for round 2, you mutter, just as a 9th wave soaks your seat. The Baltic laughs through chattering teeth, its humor colder than a jilted bride's kiss. Kelp strands cling to the pin, translucent fingers begging you to reconsider. Peeling them off feels sacrilegious, like undressing a saint. Your thumbs rub the metal feverish, friction conjuring heat where sunlight fails. A museum in Oslo displays a chess piece found in a longship's hold upon, carved with a yawn. The tide's rhythm becomes liturgy. Advance, hiss, retreat, reveal. Each cycle unearths shards, a nail head here, a plank splinter there. You arrange them on a flat stone, a puzzle for the clinically obsessive. 1 fragment sports charring, proof someone once grilled herring where you now kneel. Rust stains bloom on your palms, temporary tattoos from the pin's confession. You dip your hands in a tidal pool, the water blushing pink. When Vikings buried their chiefs, they sometimes included broken tools, a metaphor, or an insurance policy. Your pin gleams dully, a candidate for either category. The horizon bruise purples storm's precursor, or Dusk's birthmark, hard to say. Waves tutor patience, each failed assault on the shore, a lesson in inevitability. Your knife resumes scraping, metallic tinnitus, ringing in time with surf. Someone carved a curse into the pin's base, or maybe a grocery list. Sand infiltrates your collar, ground glass down the spine. You arch like an angry cat, spitting grit and inventing new oaths. A seal's head bobs beyond the breakers, its smirk visible even at 30 paces. The pin warms in your fist, an anchor against rising wind. By the 13th scrape cycle, the iron shines sort of. Pitting remains miniature craters from oxygen's slow feast. You press it to your cheek, the shock of cold, jolting tear ducts. 63 winters. This spent peg outlived its makers. 63 returns of the snow hare. Clouds unravel, Moonlight pours over your makeshift workbench. The pin's shadow stretches thin, a sundial's gnomon pointing nowhere useful. Vikings navigated more by wave patterns than stars. Some claim their maps written in salt and muscle memory. You hurl the pin at the surf. It vanishes with a glint. The tide returns it 5 minutes later. Polite rejection of your offering. Barnacles have already claimed it, opportunistic squatters in a rusty tenement. Your laugh surprises you, a seabird's croak, torn from salt-cured lungs. Fine, you tell the pin, dipping it in resin like a bad fondue. Wind riffles your notes, parchment flapping like panicked gulls. A pressed flower falls from the pages, oleander, petals brittle as papyrus. You tuck it behind the pin, a grave offering for whatever metal dreams. The resin sets cloudily, preserving your fingerprints for future diggers to misinterpret. Dawn tiptoes closer, pale fingers smearing the eastern quilt. Your knees have imprinted the sand, twin glyphs of devotion, erased by the next surge. The pin sings in your palm, vibrating with tailies of snapped cables and men overboard. You carve a fresh groove in the oarlock, its maw hungry for iron redemption. When the peg seats home, the tide applauds, wavelets clapping lazy approval. Rust blooms in the resin, a bloodstain seeping through bandages. Somewhere beneath these waves, a sunken longship cradles its dead, each timber a cradle song. You lick salt from cracked lips, the ocean's taste unchanged since Leif Erikson's last sip. The freed pin holds firm, its rebirth greased with kelp and stubbornness. You slump against the hull spine, aligning with a century-old scar. The crabs return bearing no offerings, but their sideways truths. Your knife hand twitches, itching to carve something that might outlast the morning tide. The pine sap hisses in its clay pot bubbles, bursting like tiny amber galaxies. Viking caulkers used resin from lightning-struck trees, believed it held Thor's approval for sea voyages. A 10-year dig near Trondheim unearthed a resin-stained comb still tangled with a warrior's beard, hairs. Nobody mentions the lice eggs. You stir the molten goo, its sweetness masking the stink of corrosion. She'd brought marshmallows. You tell the fire, voice hoarse from hours of salt-wind arguments. The resin thickens, strands stretching like taffy when you lift the paddle. 70 winters, this crack festered, 70 full moons watching splinters multiply. Historians still argue whether shipwrights sang during repairs, ditties about fair winds or dirges for drowned comrades. Your brush drips gold onto the Oarlock's wound, resin chasing crevices with liquid determination. Heat wakes the timber's breath, whiffs of sapwood memories from when Greenland still had trees. Red ants swarm your ankle, drawn by the scent or spite. You flick them into the coals, their crackle joining the fire's moist chuckle. Night deepens around your camp, the longship's shadow eating stars whole. A seal carcass decomposes upshore, bloat gases popping in irregular percussion. Your knife trims excess resin, shaving curls that harden before hitting sand. 8th century merchants traded amber globs as dragon tears. Fools still hunt them after winter storms. The Oarlock's edge bites your thumb, drawing blood that pearls black in moonlight. You let it drip into the resin, your DNA joining 7 centuries of sweat and fish scales. Firelight dances across the repair, exaggerating the scar into a canyon. Good as new, you lie knowing permanence doesn't exist here. Tides whisper louder as dawn approaches, impatient to test your handiwork. Your mother's voice surfaces, unbidden, a childhood lesson about glue and consequences. Resin cools into cloudy vitrals, each air bubble a captured sigh. 3 crabs investigate your sleeping role, their pincers auditioning for a horror flick. First light reveals the truth, your repairs clumsier than a drunkard's stitching. Salt crusts the resin's surface, nature's spiteful glitter. You lick the Oarlock on a dare, regret arrives before the flavor. Vikings rinsed wounds with urine, been less bitter. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of rain over open water. Resin-stiffened fingers fumble with tool rolls, each failure punctuated by inventive swearing. A tern poops on the thwart, its critique abstract but pointed. You carve your initials beside a runic Thorfinn was here. Time travelers deserve inside jokes. Fat drops pock the sand, each impact raising a miniature crater. You shelter under the inverted dinghy, knees hugged to chest like a grounded child. Rain dilutes the resin pot, creating viscous soup fit for a goblin king. The storm passes 20 minutes later, leaving everything glazed and shamelessly bright. Midday sun softens the repair, your fingerprints pool in the resin like fossilized guilt. Archaeologists found a rat skeleton preserved in Longship tar. Its last meal was saffron threads. You press a gull feather into the goo, an offering to whatever god handles half-assed redemptions. Blisters bloom across your palm, each a tiny Vesuvius waiting to erupt. The Oarlock's surface mocks you, reflects a face older than when you began. Tides returning whisper grows, urgent. It'll test your repair within the hour. You chip away a resin wart, the motion practiced from decades of fixing what shouldn't have broken. By third bell, or whatever passes for time here, the sea licks the hull's ribs. Waves jostle the Oarlock, its creaks transformed from death rattle to newborn's cry. Resin holds for now. You pour mead into the tide, a libation that'll make historians question your sobriety. Ants return with reinforcements, a battalion marching up your left boot. You surrender the field, leaving them to claim their sticky kingdom. The Longship groans as water lifts its belly, a lover stretching after long confinement. 70 winters erased in 70 hours. The math comforts nobody. Stars emerge like shy party guests when clouds part. Your fire dies, resin fumes replaced by the ocean's wet perfume. Somewhere north, icebergs calve their vibrations too faint for land-bound ears. You press an ear to the repaired Oarlock, hearing nothing but the sea's relentless maybe. Fresh-cut ash screams when bent, its fibers protesting like overstrung harp wires. Vikings favored this wood for oarlocks, flexible, yet stubborn as the sea itself. You wrestle the steam-softened plank against a fire-warmed stone, the ship's original curve etched into your palms. 8th century shipwrights soaked wood in urine to prevent splintering. Carbon tests confirm it wasn't just for disinfecting wounds. The timber relents suddenly, snapping into a crescent that mirrors the broken original. Steam licks your wrists, leaving angry pink constellations. Historians still argue whether thralls or master builders handled final fittings. Their tools left identical nicks in the grain. You carve the jaw's inner curve, blade following growth rings like contour lines on a map. Gulls gather downwind, their sidelong stares judging your carpentry. One bold pirate lands on the keel, defecating where the figurehead's teeth once grinned. Critic, you mutter, shaving a curl of wood into the fire. The scent triggers memories of 9th century combs found in Dublin, their teeth spaced perfectly for nit removal. Twilight softens the wood's edges, making your chisel work feel devotional. Each mallet strike echoes the shipwright's last signatures, their initials rotted away long before yours will. A bead of pitch falls from the rigging, gluing a stray hair to your forearm. You leave it, an accidental relic for future archaeologists to misinterpret. The new oarlock bites into its iron pin, a satisfying crunch of wood meeting rust. Morning reveals a hairline crack, the price of rushing green timber. You pack the fissure with resin-soaked wool, a cheat the Old Norse would sneered at, or maybe applauded. Reindeer fat seals the seam, its stink repelling gulls and dignity alike. Tide pools mirror the Milky Way, your trembling hands reflected among the stars. The first test comes at dawn, a wave slamming the hull with calculated spite. The oarlock groans, but holds its flex more dancer than martyr. You exhale a laugh, startling a turn mid-dive. Its fish escapes, silver body arcing toward deeper regrets. By midday, blisters bloom where calluses failed. Your knife handle sticks to raw flesh, sweat proving poorer lubrication than hoped. Viking drills bored cleaner holes. Experimental reconstructions show their bow-powered lathes spun faster than modern imitations. You compensate with sideways curses, each syllable angrier than the last. The replacement jaw takes shape, beveled edges catching sunlight like axe heads. Fire-hardened dowels lock everything in place, their ends mushroomed with precise strikes. Someone's ancestor probably died retrieving the mallet you're using. Its handle bears tooth marks no human made. Salt crusts your lips, the taste of every bad decision since breakfast. You smear honey on the oarlock's pivot, a superstition from Baltic shipyards documented in a crumbling vellum. Gulls dive for the treat, wings smacking your ears as you duck. Their chaos feels familiar, like the Longship's original launch day chaos reimagined. Shadows stretch toward Norway when you step back, hands raised in surrender. The Oarlock glows amber in late light, its form both foreign and inevitable. Waves nudge the Longship's hull, testing the repair with aquatic skepticism. A seal barks approval or derision from beyond the breakers. You collapse against the stern spine, slotting into grooves worn by ghostly helmsmen. The gulls return, landing on the new wood without hesitation. Their claws click against fresh ash, a sound like bone dice tumbling across a gambling bench. Night arranges itself around your exhaustion, the sea holding its breath until dawn. The bronze pegs resent removal, their corroded shanks screeching like owls mid-hunt. Vikings reused nails from captured ships. Some Roman-era metal still surfaces in Gotland hoards. You brace a forked lever against the hull, its iron teeth chewing ancient wood. A peg pops free, trailing a spiral of verdigris that stains your thumb blue. Quieter than my ex's lawyers, you lie, the echo bouncing off distant dunes. 17 more nails remain, each rust-welded to cedar planks, older than crossbows. 10th century smiths rolled metal between oxhide hammers. An experiment showed it prevented stress fractures. Your modern prybar disagrees, bending like licorice on the third peg. Shadows pool around your knees as the tide retreats. A nailhead snaps off, leaving its body lodged like a metal tapeworm. You resort to vinegar and silence, the acid's tang masking older stinks of bilge rot. Historians still argue whether ritual symbols on nails were prayers or inventory marks. The debate feels academic as you sniff corroded iron at midnight. Moonlight reveals your mistake. 3 pegs were ornamented with serpentine twists. Too late now, their fragments glitter in the sand like Viking confetti. Up close, you notice the cedar's grain parts around metal, wood remembering every storm that shook these fastenings. Oil helps on the 7th peg, walnut sludge, quieting the extraction. Your rag tears a thread, snagging on corrosion that predates surnames. By the 14th nail, you're inventing curses in Old Norse, bad enough to make a berserker blush. Someone's thrall probably muttered these same oaths. Their ghost chuckles through the keel. The last peg takes an hour, its underside fused with petrified rope. You coax it gently, like persuading a drunk from a mead hall bench. When it finally yields, the silence feels louder than the screeching was. Oil soothes the fresh holes, each cavity drinking dark liquid. Iron Age smiths reportedly used eel slime for lubrication, but your fingers prefer the modern vegan alternative. The ship creaks, wood relaxing as metal's grip loosens. A wave hisses disapproval, its foam fingers clawing at the repaired hull. Dawn finds you polishing nail-free planks, their bronze-stained pores closing like tired eyes. The dunes hold their breath, waiting to see what other ghosts you'll wake. A plover skitters past, its shadow tracing the path of long-dead oarsmen. Your last task whispers through salt-crusted lips, a lullaby for the hull's new stillness. Twilight drains away like mead from a cracked horn. The plows, 7 stars pricking through violet haze. Norse navigators steered by that constellation, their longships carving paths where sea and sky blurred. You lean against the keel, spine meeting, wood grain worn smoother than a wedding ring. Overhead, rigging threads the night, frail black lines, stitching stars into shapes even landlubbers recognize. Someone claimed Bronze Age sailors floated oil pans to navigate reading constellations in still water. You pour a splash of linseed onto a wave. The reflection warps the Big Dipper into a question mark. The Milky Way pools in the Longship's belly, a liquid silver that clings to tar-stained planks. Your breath fogs, each exhale a ghostly twin to the sails that once billowed here. Historians still argue whether Viking sail patterns mirrored specific constellations, a debate that dies under tonight's star-speckled indifference. Cold seeps through your trousers, a reminder that 8th century sailors stuffed wool between their legs for insulation. You shift weight, pretending it's heritage, not bad planning. The repaired Oarlock winks in starlight, its bronze finally mute after hours of screaming. A shooting star etches the sky. You almost miss it while oiling a rowing bench. The Vikings called them Ernvigisular pathmakers for souls journeying to Valhalla. Yours just makes you wish for coffee. Wind riffles your tool roll, awakening the clatter of chisels and spiteful leftover nails. You secure the straps, half expecting to find starfish using your mallet as a pillow. A crab evaluates your knots, its pincer conducting an inspection older than the Hanseatic League. The mast stretches upward, a dead tree ambitious enough to scratch the stars. You trace a Ganger symbol carved near its base, the ancient journey rune almost smooth from centuries of touch. Salt crystallizes on your lashes, each blink sharper than Odin's missing eye. Distant waves mimic far-off crowds, the sea's restless applause for a performance no one witnessed. Your fire's down to embers, charred driftwood, impersonating the very constellations you've been squinting at. Someone's sword probably fed this flame 800 years ago. Your marshmallow would disagree. You stretch back, cracking like a longship's prow through spring ice. The horizon flattens, no dawn fingers, yet clawing the east. That 7th ale in Bergen tastes better than this silence, but not by much. A tern's cry pierces the dark, its shrillness at odds with the sky's calm. You count 17 stars reflected in the Oarlock's pivot, a mechanic's zodiac only the tide could decipher. The ship seems lighter now, its shadow merging with the beach like ink on vellum. When you finally sleep, forehead pressed to a rib of oak, your dreams smell of pine tar and iron. The stars don't notice. They've always known how this ends. Moonlight bleeds across the tidal flats, the repaired Oarlock casting a shadow so crisp it could cut cordage. You spin the pivot, its motion silent as owl wings. 9th century sailors would have killed for grease this smooth, though they preferred whale blubber to your stolen bicycle oil. Pale light glazes the thwarts, each bench worn concave by generations of rowers' desperation. You run a palm over the wood, counting 37 grooves from men who left no graves. A soapstone lamp fragment winks in the sand, its edges rounded by some Vikings, endless polishing. The tide sighs, retreating to expose kelp strapped to the hull like a bandage. Historians still argue whether Vikings used lodestones for navigation or just followed walrus migration patterns. You wipe salt from the oarlock, your rag snagging on splinters, healed smoother than a bard's lies. Overhead, the moon fattens its face, pockmarked by myths older than the ship beneath you. Someone claimed Vikings navigated using sunstone crystals, calcite chips that polarized light through clouds. You squint at the sky, wondering if your phone's compass app counts as cultural preservation. Cold metal kisses your wrist, the oarlock's bronze still holding midnight's chill. Your earlier struggles with corroded pins feel distant now, buried under the rhythm of careful work. 3 seals surface beyond the breakers, their wet eyes reflecting the ship's silhouette. You press a thumb against the pivot, testing for the 100th time. No play, no wobble, just the clean arc of something made right. The moon approves its light pools in the mortise like liquid approval. Wind riffles through your toolkit, lifting wood shavings into makeshift constellations. Your stomach growls a tratted house tune, sourdough rationed, since noon demanding attention. You trade 3 pine nuts to a seagull for peace, its scavenger's laughter swallowed by the surf. Far out, bioluminescence trembles, ancient plankton coating the dark with living stars. You imagine oars dipping through that glow 8 centuries, past rowers chanting verses, now lost to worm-eaten manuscripts. The repaired oarlock hums, vibrations traveling up your arm like a shared memory. Dew pearls on the gunwale, each droplet bending moonlight into fractured rainbows. You lick one salt, and oxidized iron bloom on your tongue. Not exactly mead, but it'll do until Valhalla's breweries open for breakfast. A wave nudges the hull, the first hint of returning tide. The ship stirs like a sleeper roused, its timbers creaking with dreams of open water. You brace against the stern, heels sinking into sand that's forgotten how to hold anything. Clouds swallow the moon whole, the beach dims to monochrome. Your fingers find the oarlock by touch alone, its contours mapped during hours of stubborn work. Bronze warms under your palm, a sentience forged through fire and failure. Dawns a rumor in the east, pale streaks, elbowing through night's stubborn ribs. You smear pine tar over fresh wood, its scent sharp enough to wake the dead. A walrus bellows in the distance, its voice carrying the loneliness of abandoned outposts. The oarlock drinks the last moonlight, its shadow dissolving as the sky pales. You cap the oil jar, thumbprint preserved in grease like a rune. Tide tongues the hull, its whispers shifting from maybe to when. By noon, this repair will be someone else's mystery, a question baked into sun-bleached wood. For now, it's yours, a hinge between what was buried and what pulls seaward. The pivot turns once more smooth as a gull's glide between wave and wind. Driftwood crackles in your fire flames, stretching toward the ship's shadow. Sparks sketch faces above the coals, heavy-set jaws and brows, carved by northern winds. 10th century oarsmen burned with their longships when they died, though experts think only nobles got the full barbecue treatment. The fire murmurs smoke, curving into arm rings and broken helms. You toss salt into the flames, a habit from your grandmother's kitchen, not Odin's playbook. A spectral beard billows in the updraft, its owners stare hotter than the embers. Took you long enough, it hisses, ash drifting from invisible lips. You offer a pine nut, old ghost protocol, demands tributes for unsolicited sass. Cold laps at your ankles, the tide bringing souvenirs from deeper waters. A translucent oar sweeps through your shins, its rhythm synced to the surf's percussion. Historians still argue whether Viking thralls ever rode beside free men, or just swabbed bilge between beatings. You shift your legs, ghost wood phasing through flesh like moonlight through rigging. The fire spits a charred fish spine, a Viking equivalent of a Yelp review. They used urine to soften rigging, mutters a voice like wet gravel. You nod, having read that fun fact in a Riki Copenhagen museum. Another shape leans into the light, crusted salt defining chainmail that never rusts. Your knife nudges the coals, blade glowing like Fafnir's treasure hoard. The ghosts recoil their superstitions, outlasting 8 centuries of decay. Irons for killing, growls the chainmail spectre. You twirl the hot steel, singeing the recipe for Odin's mead into their collective memory. A cold hand grips your shoulder for icy fingers and a missing thumb. You resist checking your collarbone for frostbite. Good pivot, rumbles the mutilated ghost, approval colder than Bergen winters. His breath smells of fermented shark and unresolved feuds. Moonlight bleeds through his ribcage, illuminating a scar where a Saxon axe found its mark. He points at your repaired oarlock with a shimmering stump. We stole better from the Irish, he boasts, though Dublin archaeology sites suggest otherwise. You file the lie under casual Viking propaganda and stoke the fire. Another log splits, revealing a nail swallowed by timber long ago. The ghosts inhale in unison, drawn to the iron like moths to a barrel fire. One reaches for it, flame licking his translucent wrist. You pocket the nail, your bargaining chip for ghostly intel. Ever meet Leif Erikson? You ask, cradling the relic. The chainmail spectre snorts, smoke curling from his nasal helm. Flat earther, he spits. The fire dims, ash falling like snow on hell's doorstep. A distant walrus bellows, its call warped by sea and wind. The ghosts flicker, their forms fraying at the edges. You chuck another pine nut into the flames. Trade you stories for warmth, you propose. A century of silence answers, broken by the crackle of burning resin. The thumbless ghost shimmers his outline sharpening with each popsicle joke about Valhalla's mead supply. Oars callous the palms, he rasps, extending a hand glowing with phantom blisters. Medical texts confirm Vikings used callous shavings in love potions, a fact you'll never unlearn. You decline his offer to demonstrate. Dawn threatens the eastern horizon, pale fingers clawing through the night's remains. The ghosts retreat toward the surf, their forms dissolving into sea foam and bad decisions. Chainmail Guy leaves a final tip: grease the masthead next time. You salute him with a rusted rivet, his laughter swallowed by the incoming tide. Smoke clings to your clothes, its scent lingering like a ghost's business card. The fire collapses, ash sketching one last face in the embers. It winks, a gesture spanning 8 centuries of grudges and grudging respect. You pack your tools, the Oarlock's shadow stretching toward open water like an invitation. Plankton glow resurfaces offshore, neon blue trails marking where spectral oars still churn the depths. Your breath fogs the air, a temporary face joining the legion of vanished rowers. Somewhere beneath your boots, the sand remembers their names, each grain a tombstone for stories tide erosion hasn't stolen yet. The ship creaks, a language older than runestones. You press your palm to the hull, answering its vibration with a pulse of your own. Some repairs aren't about wood or bronze, just the quiet work of keeping ghosts company while they fade. The old rope bites your palm, its fibers petrified into saltan blood cables. You split it with a seal's rib bone, honed sharp through 600 years of salt rot. The fibers part like lovers at dawn, stiff with dried seawater and ancient grudges. 3 Viking ships found in Norway still held their original rigging, hemp fingers clinging to masts long after the crews quit breathing. Fresh strands slide through your grip, damp hemp softer than a widow's sigh. Your knots mirror those in the Gokstad ships, remains square lashings that outlast empires. Historians still argue whether the triple hitch near the mast was sacred geometry or someone showing off. You add an extra loop, make it 7 for the Aesir gods and 1 for spite. The rope resists kinking like a cat, avoiding bathwater. Used to be alive, says a passing gull. You stare at it. The gull shrugs, avian sarcasm, perfected over 10,000 years of stealing picnic scraps. Your knife trims frayed ends, snippets spiraling into the sand like nautical confetti. Twilight soaks into the fibers, graying the hemp to match the ship's weary beard. You rub beeswax along the strands, waterproofing methods unchanged since Ragnar Lothbrok's barber had bad ideas. A fringe theory claims Viking cordage sometimes contained human hair. Dug up an 1896 thesis titled Dead Norsemen's Split Ends. The wax sticks better than that theory ever did. Your hands remember old Boy Scout manuals, knots meant for tying tents, not binding warships. The ghostly oarsmen would laugh if they weren't busy haunting your boots. 1 strand frays, you spit on it and twist, Salt tightens the fibers, a trick worse than grandma's cough syrup, but twice as effective. The finished coil glistens, a black serpent napping in the moonlight. You drape it over the repaired oarlock, the union tasting of pine tar and fresh promises. Downshore, waves dismantle a sandcastle's turret, nature's reminder that all knots eventually slip. Blisters bloom on your thumbs, medieval GPS markers proving you've worked. Vikings used to read calluses like fortune tellers, claiming a ridge near the wrist meant you'd drown on a Tuesday. Yours predict a hot shower and 3 unresolved emails. A knot slips because irony loves a clean entrance. You curse in modern Swedish, a dialect these ropes never bent to. The hemp mocks you with a creak, its revenge for being born a plant. By the 20th loop, muscle memory takes over fingers dancing without your brain's permission. Someone's ancestor tied this same knot off Greenland, their sweat still oiling the technique. You half expect a spectral high five. Get seaweed instead. Midnight leans on the tide, pushing cold beneath your collar. The last hitch tightens, a love letter to tension and release. You test the lashing. It holds like a mother's last hug before a voyage. Somewhere beyond the breakers, a longship's skeleton laughs through barnacled teeth, approving the work or mocking your thumbs. Either way, the ropes will outlive you. The hull's belly breathes black, an exhale of centuries stewed in brine. Your boot finds the first step down rotten wood, groaning like a stepped-on lyre. Viking ships rarely had bilge pumps. They relied on bailing crews, singing shanties between battles. You wield a ladle instead, its handle cracked like Odin's teacup. Brackish water swirls ankle-deep each scoop, revealing sand dollars, fossilized with runes. Historians still argue whether crews drank bilgewater during sieges or just threw up politely. A crusted eel tooth floats by, nature's middle finger to your cleanliness campaign. Brace for aroma, mutters the sea, its idea of a motivational speech. The stench clings, part dead plankton, part mead left in a burial ship. Fringe archaeologists insist this muck could predict storms if you read the bubbles right. You read your gag reflex instead. The ladle dips, its bowl scraping the keel like a spoon on burnt porridge. Each heave flings water through a shaft of moonlight, liquid obsession, sparkling briefly. 3 scoops in, you hit rhythm, a morbid waltz with entropy. Barnacles crunch underfoot, their tiny volcanoes erupting with accusations. Took you long enough, hisses a limpet. You flick it, watch it sail into darkness like a Norse period comma. Halfway done, the water level now tickles your toes instead of kneecaps. Your arms protest, reminding you Vikings had biceps named things like Sven and problem solver. A trickle seeps through fresh caulk, life's way of whispering, nice try. 1 scoop unearths a fishhook, its barb still sharp enough to split promises. 9th century accounts mention love letters carved on hooks. This one just says, Eric was here. You pocketed evidence that graffiti outlives glory. Moonlight shifts, the remaining bilgewater thickens into tar soup. Your ladle handles it like a toddler eating oatmeal, reluctant and messy. 3 eels glare from a shadowed corner, liquid judges in wet robes. The last dip comes easy, the ladle meeting wood with a satisfied clunk. Dampness lingers, a phantom itch between the planks. You hum a psalm they found carved on a Danish bale bucket, the tunes mostly swear words. Out of habit, you lick your palm. Salt and foolishness, same recipe. As 793 AD, some say bilge keepers got first sip of mead rations. Others insist they got last pick of the herring. Either way, you trade both for mouthwash. Above deck, the stars hum approval, or maybe indigestion. You heave the ladle overboard, listen for a splash that never comes. The sea's full of broken things that forget how to sink. Your shadow stretches across the emptied hold, a elongated smudge proud of its bladder control. The ship sighs, less a creak than a contented belch. You count 12 heartbeats before the first seep starts anew, a droplet singing its tiny saga. Moonlight polishes the deck until it gleams, a black mirror streaked with star milk. You slump against the stern, your head denting the Milky Way's reflection. Viking navigators once steered by these same stars, though historians still argue whether they used sunstones or just cursed louder when lost. A cold splinter pokes your scalp, the ship's way of saying, pay attention. The repaired Oarlock winks above you, its bronze pivot crowned with Orion's belt. You trace the constellation's curve-same shape as the fishhook in your pocket. Some fringe types claim Vikings aligned their ships using dolphin songs, but right now, the only music's your stomach growling. Water laps the hull, each ripple duplicating the sky until you're floating in space. 9th century longships had steering boards on the right side. That's why we call it starboard, you mutter to no one. A shooting star drags its thumbnail across the dark. You half expect a rune to form in its wake. Your breath fogs the wood grain for 3 seconds. The Big Dipper wears a mustache. There's a theory that Viking sails mirrored seasonal constellations, spring patterns for raiding, winter ones for crawling home to mom. You press your ear to the deck, hear nothing but the Atlantic sighing through 1,000 knots. The horizon's gone, only this twin fleet of ship and sky remains. Scholars debate if Leif Erikson's crew celebrated reaching Vinland with ale, or just passed out face down. You mimic them anyway, cheek smooshed against plank stars, inhaling pine tar and cosmic dust. A meteor burns up somewhere over Greenland, its green flash swallowed by waves. Your fingers find fresh caulk between the planks, still warm from yesterday's repairs. Some say longships carried soil for growing onions during voyages. Right now, you'd trade a kingdom for a salad. Clouds advance, silverfish nibbling at the galaxy's edge. You count 7 planks damp with dew, each droplet holding a microcosmos of starlight. Fringe archives mention night watches chewing glowworm paste to see mapsa tastes like regret and bioluminescence. You bet. The oarlock creaks, a rusty tenor harmonizing with the tide. You hum a tavern song they found scratched inside a Swedish altar, probably. Why the congregation switched religions. When the wind stills, the ship becomes a fossil, perfect and dead under glass. One knee cracks as you rise, a punctuation mark in this starstruck sentence. Northern lights coil above, their neon tendrils licking the masthead. 9th century sagas called them armor of the dead. Tonight, it just looks like Tacoma's strip mall signage. You kick a pebble overboard, watch it vanish into the sky's inverted abyss. Did Vikings stargaze with their lovers? Histories don't say. But your boot soles wedged with rosemary from some widow's garden 3 ports back. Cold seeps through your tunic, chainmail without the prestige. The plow constellation hooks its celestial blade under the horizon, dragging dawn behind it like a prisoner. Your shadow stretches seaward, a bent nail trying to pry open night's lid. 3 waves later, you're horizontal again, spine fused to the keel by frost and apathy. The ship's reflection blurs stars bleeding into sap-stained wood until reality unzips its jacket. You dip a fingertip, send galaxies swirling like whiskey down a storm drain. Dawn's first spear grazes your eyelids. You roll away, clinging to the stern like lichen. Night retreats, its twin fleet dissolving into planks and lies. The Oarlock's shadow shortens, a sundial showing it's always time to stop thinking. Salt crusts your lips, same flavor as the day they launched this vessel. You pluck a hair from the deck, watch it float upward, confused about which sky to join. The horizon reasserts itself, a blade sharpened on your refusal to move. When your boots finally hit sand, they leave footprints in duplicate, one set leading shoreward, the other spiraling into a starfield only drunk astronomers see. The Longship hasn't moved, but the tide's humming a tune that starts with your name. The mallet strikes true, wood answering wood, with a hollow beeswax that loosens your molars. 9th century shipwrights carved protective runes under keels. You've seen the Oseberg ships, Thuris as symbols meant to ward off cantankerous sea trolls. The vibration travels up your arm, transmitting what sounds like a drunk skald reciting the Eddas. You press your temple to the damp timber. The hum reorganizes into words. Fimbulvetters frost it groans. 16 men mead, exploding whale. Fringe researchers claim certain tree rings recorded Viking chants. Turns out they just needed better microphones. 3 more strikes, each knocks a barnacle loose from the hull's underbelly. They splash into tidal pools, tiny audiences for this woody aria. A splinter embeds itself in your thumb, instant karma for doubting sacred carpentry. Solarljoth stanzas. You mutter, sucking blood, daily reminder that Icelandic poetry cuts both ways. Historians still argue whether runic inscriptions were literacy aids or direct hotlines to Odin. The keel's next thrumming verse includes a line about herring taxation, divine interventions rarely glamorous. Your palm steadies the wood, vibrations sketching faint glyphs across your skin, temporary tattoos of Noddas and Berkanen shimmer under snail trail streaks of algae. You recall that weird Oslo museum display, leathery guys debating if the Vegvasir symbol worked better clockwise or hungover. The mallet slips, cracking a plank instead of singing it. The ship retaliates. Its groan mimics your ex's tone when you forgot Mjolnir's anniversary. Night deep now, the keel's acoustics improve as frost stiffens its curves. Each strike launches a new stanza. Some verses smell of pine tar, others of fermented shark. You hum along, pitching your voice to match the timber's E minor drone. Flick a woodchip into darkness. It wings a seagull mid-snooze. The bird's indignant squawk harmonizes with a line about stolen sheep. By the 11th strike, the saga turns biographical. Your boot's origin story, Flemish cobbler, owes 3 silver. Oddly detailed for oak. A reek of low tide interrupts the ship chanting mold. Mold, like a grandma fearing dampness. You scrub lichen with a tuft of sheep's wool. Quill nibs hate fungal hitchhickers. Dawns a rumor beyond the dunes when the final note fades, leaving your ears ringing with phantom oars. The mallet's handle has blistered your palm, a perfect imprint of the Awa's rune. You press it to the keel blood payment for tonight's concert. Waves applaud half-heartedly, a Norse theater review, if ever there was one. Last act carving tonight's experience into fresh pine. Knife point hesitates. Does one use Elder Futhark or younger for snarky ship ballads? A raven croaks twice overhead, Nordic golf clap, or feathered critique. You settle on a simple one, joy, because hey, free oral history with each splinter. The keel stops humming, mission accomplished or artistic differences. Doesn't matter. Your shadow stretches east, inked in seawater and borrowed starlight. Tomorrow's tide will test the repairs. But tonight, the sagas taste like salt and answered questions. The eastern sky pales streaks of salmon and tarnished silver fanning above black dunes. You squint false dawn's favorite party trick. A chill nips your earlobes, wind dragging its nails along the coast. Knee-deep in the retreating tide, you wrestle a sodden hemp rope. Viking cordage often mixed horsehair for strength, a fact your blistered palms now appreciate through gritted teeth. Your knife saws at salt-swollen knots, each fiber squealing like a stepped-on lyre string. The rope parts with a wet thwip, releasing a musk of rotting seaweed and ancient sweat. Some scholars swear Norse sailors navigated by releasing ravens. Right now, you trade your last iron nail for a bird competent enough to fetch coffee. West remains stubbornly dark stars, pinning the horizon like celestial thumbtacks. You splash toward the stern, boots slurping sand with every step. A fresh oarlock glints in the half-light, its bronze fittings polished with crushed willow bark. 8th century metallurgists would have killed for your vinegar and salt cleaning paste. Or maybe just pillaged your workshop. Fingers fumble the final lashing, numbness setting in like a grudging houseguest. Historians still argue whether Odin's 8-legged horse Sleipnir inspired the Vikings' revolutionary keel design. You loop the rope, pretending not to notice your trembling hands, mirroring the rhythm of a gallop. Black water swirls around your thighs, an insistent customer demanding closure. The last knot cinches tight, its triple coils mocking your earlier optimism. From the dunes comes a sound like sliding gravel, or maybe the universe rolling its eyes at your progress. You check the eastern glow again, cheating lover who promises everything, delivers nothing. A seal barks offshore, its silhouette a fat comma in the pre-dawn grammar. 3 more waves retreat, each leaving a gift of froth and gull feathers. Your nail bag hangs limp, a leathery exoskeleton shed by some pragmatic beetle. Palms pressed to the repaired hull, wood hums the faintest G-sharp, could be approval or arthritis. You recall that peculiar Icelandic manuscript claiming ships sang lullabies to their crews. Right on cue, a splinter jabs your thumb, parental discipline for staying out past curfew. West refuses to fade, the plow constellation now dumping starlight into the Longship's belly. You chip away a barnacle crust with your last intact chisel. Calcified goo sprays your cheek, breakfast seasoning courtesy of the intertidal zone. Pine tar bubbles in its clay pot, aroma wafting up like a grandmother's forgiveness. You daub the final seam, black ichor sealing wood to wood. 9th century caulkers used wool, and tar your version substitutes a sacrificed wool sock. The garment's lone survivor flaps from a mast stub, a nylon flag of surrender. Wind shifts, carrying the reek of a distant skua's lunch. You check east again, horizon blushing harder now, all drama and no follow-through. The repaired Oarlock winks at you, bronze eyelid heavy with innuendo. Waves slap the hull, a slow handclap from an audience of brine. Teeth chattering, you load tools into your satchel, each clank a potential wake-up call for the sulking sun. Sand grates between molars, free abrasive dental care, Norse style. A crab sidesteps your boot, its pincers snapping Morse code, even your sleep-deprived brain deciphers as hurry. One final sweep of the tide line, netting a rusted fishhook and a gull's wishbone. The eastern glow finally coughs up a sliver of gold, false dawn's deadbeat roommate finally paying rent. You salute the stubborn western stars, their light older than every saga ever chiseled in stone. Footprints fill with water behind you, each a dissolving memoir. The Longship rests higher now, tides retreat leaving it beached like a satisfied whale. You fake confidence as dawn spills over the dunes, but your shadow still clings to the west, inked in night's final defiance. A wet snort breaks the wave's rhythm, 3 dark humps cresting beyond the surf. You freeze knife, hovering over a half-severed fishing net. Harbor seals haunted North shores for 800 winters. This one's stare feels sharper, its whiskers quiver, sampling your scent between salt gusts. You crouch, knees popping like a lockbox, yielding grudgingly. Back on the beach, a thermos of tepid coffee mocks your desperation. 9th century traders prized seal fat for lamp oil. Right now, you trade a barrel for caffeine. The seal sinks, ripples spreading like a dropped coin's echo. Palm skims the water's skin, an offering of brine and blisters. Historians still argue whether Selkies guided lost ships or just judged bad decisions. Your reflection wavers, a grease-smudged penitent seeking clemency. Bubbles rise where the seal dove, primordial soda fizz. West wind tugs your hood, exposing ears red as forge coals. You recall that Icelandic fishermen wore seal-tooth amulets to cheat drowning. The irony stings your own necklaces, a USB drive on a bootlace. Something bumps your submerged satchel. You jerk back, steel tools clanking a guilty chorus. The seal resurfaces 8 paces left, eyes glinting with theatrical innocence. It barks once, the sound a rusty hinge protesting. Your laugh surprises you. A seal's approval rating just skyrocketed. Dawn finally guts the eastern clouds, light bleeding across tidal pools. The seal rolls onto its back, revealing a belly scarred by propellers and time. You mimic its posture, shoulder blades grinding against barnacle-crusted wood. Cold seeps through your jacket, an icy handshake from the deep. 10 heartbeats pass. The seal vanishes, leaving only circles on the water's ledger. Your tribute evaporates, salt crystallizing in palm creases. Some claim Viking children rode seals for sport your thighs. Veto that idea before it fully forms. The net's last strand snaps, rusty mesh collapsing into sea foam. You wade ashore, legs aching like tax audits. Seal tracks dimple the sand ahead, oval prints leading toward the dunes. Your boot crushes a discarded whelk shell, its spiral architecture undone by one careless step. Shadows retreat westward, stubborn as unrequited crushes. You shake out your sodden gloves. 3 gulls swoop low, their screams tripping over each other for attention. The thermos beckons with tepid lies. First sip tastes like battery acid and regret, but the seal doesn't need to know. Black pitch glops from the bristle brush, each stroke sealing the Longship's wounds like cauterized flesh. You swipe sweat with a tar-crusted wrist. 14th century artisans would have used goose feathers for this job. The irony's thick. You're out here playing Viking, but ordered this goo online. A blister pops. Your hiss scares off a hermit crab. Pine tar stench pins your nostrils. They used to boil this stuff in pits for 8 days straight. Your thumbnail traces a drying seam. The texture triggers a memory of licorice left in a hot car. 3 ravens land on the prow, feathers gleaming like spilled oil. Vikings believed Odin's messengers watched human follies. These guys seem more interested in your jerky stash. The smallest one cocks its head, black eyes judging your brush technique. Tar bubbles where the keel meets stern, a sticky kiss mending centuries of separation. You press your thumb into the warm sludge, leaving whorls, that'll outlast your bones. Experts think these fingerprint marks in old ships were accidental. Your gut says they're signatures. Midnight chill stiffens your knuckles. The thermos offers lukewarm betrayal. Norse law required shipbuilders to fix leaks. For 3 winters post-launch, your warranty expired 800 years back. The ravens croak in unison. Avian lawyers demanding back pay. Wind shifts, your own stink punches you in the face. Someone in Oslo once tried brewing mead with tar as a historical experience. Reviews mentioned unrelenting regret and emergency dental visits. You dab more pitch on a cracked strake. This hellbrew stays external. The Oarlock's new joint gleams under moonlight bronze pegs, peeking through fresh tar like jewelry. Your palm slips, smearing a Rorschach blot across the hull. Historians still argue whether longships bore clan symbols or just whatever the paint guy felt like. Gulls arrive, drawn by the promise of poor life choices. You flick a tar glob. It arcs toward the surf in a perfect parabola. Miss the smallest raven laughs, a sound like walnuts crushed under tires. Left thumb finds a dry patch, skin bonding to wood in awkward marriage. 8th century tar pits near Gotland preserved fingerprints, children's prints beside adults. Apprenticeship or child labor. Your knees answer with twin pops. Firelight dances on the hull, revealing scars from icebergs and axe strikes. You seal the last seam, tar oozing over ancient joinery, like lava over Pompeii. The ravens hop closer. One steals your brush and flies off cackling. Dawn bleeds through fog. Your work glistens like a beetle's shell. 3 thumbprints mark stern, prow, and mast base, a sticky trinity of ownership. Ships were considered living creatures in olden laws. This one purrs under your touch. Tide whispers secrets to the tar. Your repairs flex as the ship breathes. A lone seal watches from beyond the breakers, probably the same judgmental one from yesterday. You salute it with a tar-coated thumb, the universal symbol for bite me. Sun climbs, pitch softens under its gaze. You carve initials into the gunwale with a bent nail. Carolingian shipwrights did the same, though theirs weren't surrounded by empty Red Bull cans. Shadows shrink, the longship's silhouette tightens against the sand. Salt crusts your eyebrows, each blink grinds like mortar. A dripping sound starts behind the mast, tar's final insult sliding down your backpack. Vikings would have sacrificed a goat for better luck. You settle for muttering profanities in 3 languages. Wind tests the seams they hold. The raven returns your brush dangling from its beak like a wonky cigar. You trade jerky for the tool, avian blackmail, in broad daylight. Fingerprints harden. The ship wears your mark, where even time hesitates to scrub. Waves lap the hull, their rhythm syncing with your pulse. Somewhere beneath the tar, old wood dreams of wave walls and whale roads. Waves nudge the repaired hull, the first tentative push of a foal learning to stand. Your palms flatten on the gunwale, salt-roughened skin reading tremors through oak, 9th-century shipwrights, stuffed ballast sacks, with stones from chieftains' graves, the weight of ambition pressing against the seafloor. The keel groans, a sound halfway between yawn and battle cry. Sand slurry slurps at the stern, one last kiss from the shore. An Icelandic farmer found an intact longship under his sheep field in 1976. Geography's practical joke on history buffs. Footprints dissolve where you paced these past weeks, tide erasing evidence of your vigil. Bronze pegs gleam under a slick of brine. Critics claim they should tarnish faster. Historians still argue whether tar layers held animal fat or fermented fish. Oil your nose votes for option B. Seaweed fingers curl around the prow, algae claiming squatters' rights. You brace against the port side, muscles remembering the ache of green wood bending. That living ship, legal status from Norway's medieval laws, feels literal now. The hull tenses like a greyhound at the starter's bark. Moonlight etches runic shadows across new timber fresh planks, quarreling with old grain. A gull lands on the masthead, its grip faltering on tar-sticky wood. Viking captains supposedly chewed birch bark to numb seasickness. You spit out your gum like a guilty child. Two waves collide beneath the hull. The ship rises on liquid hinges. Your knees bend instinctively, landlubbers' legs betraying you. They used to launch these beasts. By rolling them over log tracks, you're grateful for the ocean's smoother entrance ramp. Salt crust cracks between your toes, last souvenirs of shore. The repaired oarlock pivots freely, its bronze socket gleaming like a wedding band. Someone in Bergen tried copying Norse sails, using only pubic hair from reenactors. Delightfully cursed Kickstarter project back in 2012. Currents pluck at the rudder, invisible hands testing your craftsmanship. You grip the tiller, a thrift store umbrella handle grafted onto ancient wood. Scholars debate if navigation stones worked by polarizing light your compass. App flickers and dies. Wind combs through the rigging. Untied ropes slap the mast in Morse code. The sail bag bulges, pregnant with potential gales. A Danish carpenter once built a replica using only period tools. Took him 16 years and 3 divorces. Stars smear across the sky, the hull slicing constellations into halves. Your thumbnail picks at tar beneath the rail. 60 hours of labor, fossilized in 30 seconds. They found charred vervain seeds in a Viking ship's hold. Were they medicine, spice, or just someone's snack stash? Bow cutwater whispers through black water, the sound of scissors through silk. You inhale cold brine, lungs stinging like that winter in Tromsø. An archaeologist claims dulse seaweed in the bilge prevented scurvy wrong century. But you packed jerky anyway. The horizon bucks. Muscle memory screams for Dramamine. Waves patter against the hull, first as taps, then punches. Reykjavik's Maritime Museum keeps a longship pillow pet in their gift shop. Absurd, until you realize you'd buy 3. Rudder fights your grip, the sea asserting seniority. Moonlight dies behind scudding clouds. Your world shrinks to creeks and spray. That open debate about Vikings freezing their beards for armor, stupid, until wind-blown salt crust glues your eyes shut. Something thrums in the keel, a submerged log. Whale song. Your pulse answers in double time. They spread hazel twigs under the mast. For luck, you've got 2 Bic lighters and questionable life choices. Dawn leaks through cloud cracks, the ship carving a scar across the sea. Your boots squelch, with each step damp wool clinging like needy children. 321 nails hold this beast together, not counting the duct tape under rowing bench 4. Land shrinks to a charcoal smudge. Your throat tightens. The Raven crew abandons ship, winging toward breakfast scraps on shore. Someone should have mentioned how Viking voyages always start with losing sight of everything familiar. On your phone's dying screen, a text from last week. You okay? You stuff the device into a tar-lined crevice. 12th century waterproofing meets 21st century guilt. The ship hums beneath you, a hive finally returning home. Your fingers uncurl over the stern dried herring stiff as credit cards sliding into foam. Mead follows, a honeyed amber arc catching moonlight like liquid blasphemy. Viking funerals mock your offerings, scale no burning ship, just a convenience store tribute. The waves cradle your gifts, pouring tide water into the bottle's throat. 17 winters back, they pulled the Oseberg ship from Norwegian mud, its oars still sticky with sacrificial blood. Your granola bar wrapper floats defiantly, a shiny intruder in this 9th century ritual. Salt spray licks your offerings' edges, the sea rewriting your meager liturgy. Historians still argue whether burial ships carried actual corpses or just symbolic hair clippings. You're suddenly grateful for avoiding both options. A chill embraces your calves, phosphorescence swirling where offerings sank. Each bubble bursts with Viking graffiti, crude fish bones spelling thanks in Old Norse. Your laugh startles a night heron, its croak echoing across the cove. 3 more herring follow, their papery skins dissolving like battlefield prayers. You recall Greenlandic sagas mentioning walrus penis bones as good luck tokens. This is the Tinder version of ancestor worship. The bottle drifts northwest, currents carrying it toward that Bergen Museum's glass case. Your throat tightens, half guilt, half allergies from yesterday's tar fumes. Replicas of Odin's ravens watch from Icelandair ads, their plastic eyes judging your half-assed piety. Foam curls around your ankles, a cold hand demanding receipts. The mead bottle bobs upright, persistent as a drunk uncle at a wedding. Norse law required witnesses for grave offerings. You glance at the empty horizon and lie. Yeah, they saw. Waves erase your footprints again. The beach reincarnated as a blank page. Silver scales glint in the shallows, herring ghosts winking through liquid shadows. That conspiracy theory about Viking algae-based biofuel more plausible than your excuses for skipping therapy. Salt crust stiffens your jeans, knees crackling like ritual fires when you kneel. The last herring slips from numb fingers, its descent filmed by your dying phone flashlight. Archaeologists found cod bones in Longship graves. Yours will leave Snickers wrappers. 10 heartbeats pass, the ocean's digestion complete. No thunderous approval, just the lullaby of retreating surf. You count 7 gulls circling. Norse numerology claims it's a good omen. They're probably waiting for you to leave. The bottle vanishes, replaced by a cresting wave's white grin. Stars reflect in its glass neck. For an instant, a cosmic toast before the deep reclaims its due. Your breath fogs the air, a runic cloud questioning every life choice since breakfast. Dawn bleeds through storm clouds, pale light revealing kelp, strands tangled in the rudder. The ship groans, a sound older than Bergen, older than mead, older than the ache between your shoulders. 2 waves collide beneath the hull. You grip the gunwale and whisper the only prayer that matters. Don't sink. The barnacles cling like old grudges, their shells crunching under your chisel's edge. Each scrape sends white dust into the wind, a blizzard of stubborn sea rot. You remember reading that Vikings coated hulls with pine tar. But these growths laugh at such defenses. Medieval bestiaries claimed barnacles birthed geese, a myth squashed when someone finally watched eggs hatch. Your chisel slips, etching a fresh scar in wood already patterned like a topo map. Historians still argue whether Norse crews beached ships weekly or let the ocean carve its poetry. One barnacle cracks open, revealing tendrils curled tight as a sailor's fist. Its inner edge could slice through leather, a natural razor honed by salt and spite. You mutter about pressure washers and overtime pay. The Longship groans in amused disagreement. 3 more clusters surrender, each leaving cratered rings in the oak. The Dublin Museum displays a 9th century ore chewed down 70% by these calcium jaws. Your own efforts feel like brushing teeth for a whale, noble but pointless. A breeze carries the stench of exposed rot, centuries of fish guts fermented into shipskin. Gulls circle the debris, field avian vultures, drawn to your chisel's carnage. You flick a barnacle skyward. It arcs over breaking waves like a skipped stone. Kelp threads cling to your wrists as you work, slimy handcuffs resisting each motion. Beneath the mess, carved serpent eyes peer up, their pupils clouded by lentil-sized barnacle offspring. Nordic lore claims figureheads warded off sea monsters, but nobody warned you about calcium-based ones. Your palm meets a growth as wide as a tankard, its base fused to wood grain like conjoined twins. 4 strikes, 8-12. The chisel handle blisters match the ones from rowing the dinghy last summer. Vikings used whale oil for everything from lamps to divorce settlements. Maybe you'll try it as aftershave. The barnacle pops free, dragging a wood chunk thick as your thumbnail. You press tar into the wound to black blood for the this wooden leviathan. Downshore, tide pools gurgle complaints about disrupted ecosystems. Night falls as you scrub white dust from your forearms, the sea licking fresh wounds in the hull. Scholars reconstructed a Gotland ship using only 11th century tools. Their blisters probably matched yours stitch for stitch. Faint clicks echo from the discarded pile, barnacles dreaming of triumphant regrowth. Dawn finds your bucket full of jagged trophies, enough to pave a mermaid's driveway. The wind shifts east. You catch diesel fumes from some container ship beyond the horizon. 7 gulls fight over barnacle flesh, their beaks snapping like shears through sailcloth. You toss the last fragment, its arc mirrored by a jumping mullet. The hull breathes easier now, fresh, wood exposed after 8 decades of crusted armor. Waves test the repairs with kitten licks, all bite withdrawn for now. Far out, a gray seal surfaces. It's either judging your work or mocking your sunburn. You raise the chisel in tired salute. The waves return your shadow stretched thin across the tide line, a thing of barnacle dust and borrowed time. The iron hook drags like a broken promise, its rusted teeth snagging kelp and yesterday's regrets. Sand grinds against metal, a sound like bones whispering through a bronze sieve. You recall those Oslo museum displays, Viking anchors, where iron monsters lashed with walrus hide ropes. Your own feels heavier. Tidewater sloshes into your boot as you heave, salt soaking through wool socks you'd bought for a ski trip that never happened. Historians still argue whether Norsemen buried anchors as ritual offerings or just hated carrying them inland. Your back muscles vote for the second theory, each tendon screeching like a poorly greased pulley. One prong catches a stone, the shock rattles your fillings. Runestones in gelling mention sea steeds needing anchors, but nobody inscribed the blisters. A crab scuttles over the chain, its pincers sketching runes only crustaceans understand. You almost warn it about tetanus, decades of seabed rust flaking off like carcinogenic snow. 3 pulls. 5. 13. The anchor's shadow stretches into a gutted serpent, its form warped by the sinking sun. Documentary footage floats through your mind, buried anchors found beneath modern parking lots, their chains knotted into Celtic love charms. Your own anchor lacks romance, its shank pitted by electrolysis and neglect. A clump breaks free, revealing barnacles cemented to the stock. They've fused into a coral-crowned nature, mocking your earlier chisel work. You chip one off. It leaves a divot shaped like Greenland. Danish archivists once mislabeled an anchor fragment as Thor's toenail clippings, a mistake they quietly fixed after 3 pints of mead. Diesel fumes taint the breeze again, that phantom container ship still haunting the horizon. You spit into the froth, watch saliva ride currents that once carried longships to Newfoundland. The anchor resists, its fluke wedged under a stone the size of a wedding cake. Vikings used such rocks for ballast, and sometimes as improvised weapons during shore raids. Muscles burn as you dislodge it, the chain suddenly slack. Momentum sends you stumbling back heels, carving trenches in the sand. Waves rush to fill them, eager archivists, documenting your clumsiness. The anchor lies exposed now, an arthritic hand clawing at twilight. You kneel beside its head, patina like moss on a forgotten grave. Some reenactors swear sleeping with anchor fragments cures nightmares. You're pretty sure it'd just give you scoliosis. Tar-stained fingers trace Norse repair marks, cross-hatched chisel strokes whispering of a 9th century blacksmith's deadline. Shovel bites sand, the hole inhales each scoop. Stars prick the sky as you dig Orion's belt cinched tight over the Atlantic. Buried anchors found near Reykjavik contained mouse bones stowaways who never saw the new world. Your own hole collects beer caps and a Pokemon card, 21st century, midden for future archaeologists. The anchor drops in a thunderclap, muffled by sand. You half expect a ghostly thrum, the ring of Ulfbert's steel, or a skald's chant. Reality offers only a wet thud, a sofa tossed into a swamp. 3 rocks seal the grave, their shapes echoing the Futhark symbols for regret, release, and blistered palms. Tide licks your offering, salted tongues smoothing the burial mound. A lone tern glares from a driftwood perch avian auditor checking your work. You empty the diesel stink from your lungs, exhale fog that mingles with the Longship's breath. Night gnaws the horizon edge of the world, rewritten in indigo. Anchors unearthed near Hedeby showed teeth marks from long extinct cod, their jaws fossilized around forgotten iron. Your boots sink deeper as you retreat, every step erasing itself before dawn. Wind riffles your hair, carrying the carbon tang of a distant campsite. Viking captains supposedly napped curled in anchor beds, a maritime hug from the ocean floor. You pocket a rust flake, its weight negligible against the cargo in your chest. Moonlight pries at the grave, but the sand holds firm. Some wounds stay buried, others just wait. Mist hugs your shoulders, damp wool clinging to skin already salted by the sea. Your lantern gutters, flame shrinking to a barley seed as fog thickens. The Longship vanishes, its dragon prow dissolving into spectral, gray only. The scent of tar remains. You fumble for the wick dial, 19th century tech mocking your smartphone-shaped instincts. Sea smoke blurs the tide line, horizons erased like a child's chalk drawing. Vikings navigated such fogs with sunstone crystals, calcite wedges that polarized light through clouds. Your modern hack, squinting until the lamp's halo becomes a drunken moon. A wave hisses, sound dampened, as if the oceans stuffed its ears with cotton. Threadbare light reveals 2 square feet of sand, your kingdom now. Each step sinks silently, bootprints erased before you lift your heel. Historians still argue whether longships carried ravens or crows for fog-bound navigation. The birds all died waiting for consensus. You pat your pocket, regretting the granola bar sacrificed to gulls 3 hours ago. Lantern glass fogs with your breath, eternal battle between human warmth and maritime damp. Some reenactors swear animal fat candles pierce mist better, but you'll take whale oil's stench over rendering tallow at midnight. Your flame sputters, casting Rorschach shadows that look suspiciously like tax forms. Something groans offshore, wood flexing, or a sea creature yawning. 9th century laws from Gotland demanded foghorn-style bell-ringing violators. Fined 12 silver ounces per startled fisherman. You tap your pry bar against an oarlock, the clang swallowed whole by the haze. Coolness seeps under your collar, a liquid shiver trickling down vertebrae. Mist condenses on tools, mallet handle slick as an eel's belly. Archaeologists found a Danish fog lantern filled with fermented herring. Oil the excavators reportedly fled weeping. Your own lamp smells like burning IKEA meatballs, a Nordic fusion nobody requested. Kneeling, you trace the keel, fingertips decoding growth, rings through the haze. Each ripple whispers of North Atlantic storms, of fog, so thick oarsmen rowed by braille. Modern sailors use radar, your ancestors used cursed amulets and bladderwrack tea. Neither method prevented shipwrecks, but only one inspires decent tattoos. The lamp dims, you twist the fuel valve with salt-stiff fingers. 19th century whalers called this fogrupnelling. Sailing blind while anchored, trusting the sea's mercy. Your anchors buried the ships as grounded as your dating life. Waves slurp, the hull liquid tongues tasting your repairs. A shape flickers westwards, maybe driftwood, maybe a mast. 13th century Icelandic sagas mention fog-drogger drowned sailors, materializing to critique navigational errors. You cock your head, the fog mimics voices, but never quite forms words. One phrase echoes, could be Old Norse for cock better, or tinnitus from earlier sun exposure. Breath steams, each exhale a ghost rehearsing complaints. You rub the lantern's handle, carved with interlaced serpents, someone's great-great-grandmother called art. Thermos coffee hits your tongue bitter as a jilted shield maiden. Heat spreads, a temporary stand against the chill, gnawing your knuckles. Stars reappear as smudges, celestial fingerprints on wet parchment. Norse star charts labeled Orion's belt as Fiskikarlar, the fishermen, though they might just been hungry. You count 3 blurred points, enough for celestial navigation if you ignore the 4th migraine forming. Fog thins near dawn, revealing the Longship's new Oarlock glazed with dew. Mist clings to rigging like cobwebs in a giant's attic. You half expect a spectral handyman to demand rent. The lantern dies, its final pop scattering starlings from a distant pine. Salt crusts your lips, the taste of dialogues unsaid to the sea. You press a palm to the hull wood, humming with the memory of foghorns. Some wounds stay buried. Others just wait, kneeling where waves barely reach your knees baptize themselves in frigid brine. you find the tide pool judges arrayed. Fiddler crabs tilt eye stalks upward, their pincers poised like courtroom gavels. Historians verified Norse traders paid tolls in amber at tidal crossroads, but none documented confessionals to crustaceans. You empty your pockets metaphorically, admitting you've forgotten 7 of your niece's birthdays. A hermit crab hoists its stolen shell, rotating like a disapproving senator. Your whisper trails off, should've led with the tax fraud. Salt crystallizes on your wrists, each flake a receipt for poor life choices. 9th century fishing villages used crab shells to dye wool crimson, a fact now overshadowed by your admission about the canoe incident. Brine seeps through your jeans, penance delivered via capillary action. One crab sidles closer, armor glinting like blacksmith isle relics. You recount cheating at H. Nefertafel during that reenactment using Wikipedia, moves against shield maidens. The arthropod tribunal clicks in unison, their verdict lost to a rogue wave. Rainwater pools mimic microoceans, their surfaces trembling with each breath. You mention the forged museum docent badge, how nobody questioned a Viking timeshare consultant. Tide shifts, brackish liquid swirls around fingers bloated from hours of labor. Archaeologists debate whether seaweed amulets in graves were spiritual GPS yours, just mildewed in storage. A crab larva brushes your palm, translucent ghost demanding lighter sins. Your voice cracks confessing the mead recipe, 3 parts honey, 1 part YouTube tutorials. They scatter, perhaps appalled by your substitution of agave syrup. Historians still argue if Norse children kept crabs as pets. Your audience clearly prefers professional detachment. Foam hisses retreat the court, adjourning with tidal inevitability. You place an oatcake offering on a barnacle throne. It dissolves faster than your resolutions. 4 crabs haul the crumbs seaward, procession wobbling like drunk huskarls. Your knees protest as you rise, sand clinging like 1,000 tiny bailiffs. Shadows stretch wafer-thin dusk, not judging, just observing. You pocket a pebble smoothed by ceaseless surf, the only secret you'll keep tonight. Some absolutions leave salt rings. Others just itch. The curved hull cradles your spine, an inverse cradle carved by hands dead 9 centuries. Whalebone reinforcements arc overhead, each rib scavenged from beach strandings, not hunts. You flex your shoulders backward, vertebrae nestling into grooves worn by nameless shipwrights. 9th century yards used fresh-cut oak keels, but scavenged whale remains haunted every 3rd vessel. A splintered rib presses your left scapula, uncomfortable truth-teller in the dark. You imagine the whale alive, its last dive spraying foam over Greenlandic ice. Fringe theorists claim certain longships contained actual whale spirits tonight. You almost believe them. Your elbows find twin notches, wood polished smoother than any office chair. Damp wool prickles your neck, a poor substitute for seal fur padding. The hull creaks, its timber embracing moonlight, while rejecting modern hands. Historians still argue whether Norse builders sang to their whales or just cursed their stink. Your breath steadies, inhaling tar and the ghost of fermented shark. One knee knocks against iron rivets, their mushroomed heads warm from day's sun. You trace their pattern, rising diagonals like a drunkard stitching. Amber deposits in Jutland-proof traders, braved Arctic waters. None mention the splinters in their asses. A wave slaps the hull, its hollow response mocking your cushioned modern life. Your necktie flaps loose, corporate silk, absurd against salt-stiffened planks. You peel it off thread by thread until it's just another weed in the tide line. 10th century laws fined craftsmen for poorly secured ships no penalties for abandoning neckwear. The woolen sarcophagus tightens its grip, your penance for 3 missed gym weeks. Moonlight leaks through caulking gaps, liquid silver pooling in your palms. You close a fist, catching nothing but the ache of 37 years. Rotting whale oil clings to the wood, pungent reminder of lamps that outlived empires. Medieval texts describe whalebone arrowheads yours could barely skewer takeout containers. Teeth marks scar the keel youthful beavers. Ice flows, a bored chieftain. You pick at the grooves, fingernail collecting sawdust older than your bloodline. Archaeologists found walrus ivory game pieces aboard the Oseberg your dice remain stubbornly plastic. An owl hoots inland, feathered pedant critiquing your woodsmanship. Your phone buzzes in a boot, doom-scrolling, drowned by tidal lullabies. The hull's curve presses like a mother's sternum, urging sleep you've deferred since grad school. Coastal tribes once slept in upside-down boats, their dreams presumably less Wi-Fi haunted. You surrender spine aligning with ancestral grain cheek pillowed on tarred hemp. Dawn remains mercifully distant, the whale's ghost ribs flex, settling into seabed memories as you sink. Some shelters demand payment in coin. This one takes your pride and returns a scrap of Viking snore. The folded sail spills across your lap, itchy waves of patched wool and nettle thread. Your needle dives again, thick stitching, pulled taut against decades of gales. 9th century sails often used horsetail hair for seams, but nettle fibers hold better in damp. A gust tugs at your repairs, invisible fingers testing each suture's resolve. You spit on a frayed edge, saliva tempering the thread like some seasick shoemaker. Vikings supposedly urinated on their sails for luck, a fact your nose refuses to question. The cloth rasps against your wrists, coarse fabric whispering of sheep long since wolf food. Historians still argue whether red sails signaled raiders or just disguised bloodstains from clumsy crewmen. 3 stitches snap at once, the wind's idea of a playful jab. Easy now, you mutter, fingers rebinding the threads in a Celtic knot pattern. Your forearm muscle twitches, betrayed by gym memberships spent curling lattes instead of rope. Breezes skitter across the beach, plucking sand grains to hurl at your forehead. The last patch settles into place, a nettle-scarred rectangle over a sail's old dagger wound. You shake it out coughing as 2 centuries of dust claims your sinuses. Fold lines become cresting waves in the fabric, ghostly seas frozen mid-swell. Preservationists found a sail fragment in Trondheim bogs. Its smell reportedly cured a mayor's gout. Rising wind fills the cloth, your repairs snapping like a drumhead. A loose thread tickles your ear, its Morse code translating to good enough. You wrap the bundle tight, nettle cord biting into your palm like a feral kitten. Twilight catches the sail mid-flap, turning its patches into stained glass against the dunes. Footsteps echo behind you, just the tide rearranging pebbles into false companionship. Your thumbnail picks at resin stains, amber globs warmer than the dying sunlight. Some say longships carried spare sails in carved chests. Others think they just stole replacements. The wind rises again, this time with a smuggler's chuckle in its throat. You press the folded sail against the mast, its weight less than your college diploma. A cold gust slips under your collar, reminder that wool underwear predates Vikings by millennia. Starlight traces your stitches, celestial QA inspector grading on a curve. Your shoulders tense, waiting for the wind's verdict like a deflated boxer. The breeze stills, holding its breath for 27 throbbing heartbeats. Then it returns as a sigh, rippling the sail's edge with something like approval. Crushed nettle pollen drifts from your cuffs, golden approval from the plant kingdom. You lean back, spine cracking, a joke vertebrae hasn't told since the Bronze Age. Distant waves applaud. The sail remains silent, wise enough not to jinx its second chance. You wipe resin on your jeans, modern denim, accepting this new purpose without comment. Tomorrow threatens repairs you're not ready to name. Tonight stitches hold, threads endure. Wind adopts the mend as its own. The first gull arrives at dawn, a gray-white critic circling your repairs with a butcher's scrutiny. Its cry slices the salt air, 3 octaves too sharp for morning. You chuck a splintered oar fragment seaward, avian protests, dissolving into a feeding frenzy of insults. Viking decks, often swarmed with gulls fighting for fish guts, nature's original food bloggers. Another bird dive bombs your head, wingtips skimming hair like a comb made of spite. Missed the memo about personal space. You grumble, tossing a pebble that's ignored completely. Some Norse texts claim Gull's house, sailors' souls, which explains their terrible parking skills near tides. The flock's argument crescendos, a symphony of complaints about your carpentry and or lineage. You lob driftwood into the surf, an offering that sparks mid-air wrestling matches. Their screeches shift key anger, diluted by curiosity's brighter chord. Historians still argue whether longships carried caged gulls to release for navigation, or if that's just raven propaganda. A juvenile bird lands nearby, tilting its head at your repaired oarlock, like a toddler confronting modern art. Sunlight glints off patched wood, gull pupils shrinking into judgmental black pinpricks. You sprinkle dried fish, crumbs from your pocket, converting hecklers into a feathery focus group. Their talons scratch dragon runes into the sand. Reviews your grateful can't be translated. One bold flyer snatches your hat, parading it shoreward like a scalp trophy. The breeze carries their fishy breath, a perfume blending decay and entitlement. You snap a reed flute from your toolkit, its warped notes startling the flock into momentary silence. 19th century sailors believed gull blood cured arthritis and also made terrible soup. Wings flap in discordant retreat, the birds regrouping as a muttering cloud. Your next throw arcs high, a spiral of sun-bleached plank that glints like bone. The lead gull intercepts it mid-flight, a pirouette that almost looks like respect. Sand grinds under your boots as you retreat, letting them claim the beach through screeched bylaws. Their protests fade with each step, reduced to background static by the surf's white noise. You pocket a dropped primary feather, its edge sharp enough to split regrets. The flock's shadow ripples over the Longship, dappled approval from wings that outlived empires. Waves erase the birds' scribbled critiques, tides being kinder editors than history. One last squawk follows you inland, half-hearted protest from a critic who'd missed the show. The last peg slips home, your palm meeting wood without resistance. Empty hands hang dumb, a puppeteer's fingers after the show ends. Waves chew the shore louder now, hungry jaws testing the Longship's rebirth. You swipe a thumb across the Oarlock's pivot, smooth as a whetstone-kissed blade. Viking shipbuilders waterproofed hulls with pine tar boiled for 3 days straight, sticky work that outlasted empires. The smell hits you late, burnt caramel and industrial adhesive eloping in your sinuses. Your teeth find a split lip, nervous habit from a childhood spent biting answers. 9th century grave teeth show deliberate grooves, maybe decorations, maybe early dental floss guides. Tar bleeds between planks like obsidian veins, each drip hardening faster than regret. Historians still argue whether repairs got ceremonial names, or if craftsmen just cursed in creative dialects. Your knee cracks as you rise, a percussion section no saga would mention. 14,400 and 2 pegs, no, you didn't count, but your spine swears it's precise. Foam licks the keel, invitations written in seafoam, cursive only the desperate parse. You kick damp sand, watch grains stick to tar streaks like stars tonight. The hammer lies at your feet, its handle smoother than your grandfather's wedding ring. 15 winters since you last swung it, rotted porch steps, and a girl laughing at your splinters. Salt wind combs your hair, mother's fingers scolding, forgiving, scolding again. Lantern light wavers, flame reflected in fresh pitch, turns the hull molten. You press a palm where dragon's breath once flared, paint erased by Atlantic tantrums. Modern replicas capsize in mild swells. Turns out YouTube tutorials skip the human sacrifice parts. A cold droplet slips down your collar, sky spit, or the ocean's needy salting. Your boot crunches a mussel shell, sound sharper than a longship's keel splitting ice. Norse law fined builders for faulty hulls, 3 silver coins per sunk crewman. The math keeps your fingers twitching, blisters recalculating imaginary debts. Waves slurp at the rudder, a helmsman's ghost humming off-key through barnacle lips. You rub soot into the new wood, antiquing what never asked to be antique. 19th century collectors paid extra for Viking musk, a blend of peat rot and dead fish. Your nose wrinkles legacy in a jam jar sold as aftershave. The last peg winks bronze, a single coin paid to time's toll collector. Wet lines tighten around the oarlock, hemp fibers plumping like satisfied leeches. You step back. The ship becomes a stranger perfected by goodbye's rehearsal. 16 steps to the tideline childhood games flood your souls with anchor weight. Waves hiss your name in languages the blood remembers, eardrums too stiff for poetry. Dawn peers over your shoulder, first light gilding fresh carvings meant to rot unseen. Archaeologists will call this Viking revival, though you're just a thief returning stolen breath. The horizon flexes, a muscle readying to hurl worlds. 2 gulls alight on the mast, divorce lawyers for the sea's custody claim. Your shadow stretches Atlanticward, a bridge even Valkyries wouldn't risk crossing. Something between prayer and surrender clots your throat, a raven's croak trapped in church bells. The tide's fourth advance wets your souls, final warning from a lover who cleans clocks. You pivot boots, inventing footprints backward through sand's wet ledger. The longship shrinks with every step, chest tightening like rigging in a squall. Scholars insist longships feared open water, but it's the shore that devours with soft teeth. Waves blur the hull into a charcoal sketch, becoming what storytellers will force into legends. Dunes rise to block your view, nature's stagehand whisking the set away. Salt crusts your cheeks, not weeping, just coastal air's clingy affection. 107 heartbeats pass before you turn again, empty beach performing its flawless illusion. Winds carry the Oarlock's first true test, a creak tuneless as your childhood piano. Your fingernails dig half-moon charters into palms, navigating nowhere forever. The sea keeps breathing patient as a waiting room with sharkish teeth. Lichen scratches your palm as you slump against a boulder, third-day stubble of the coast. Shipbuilders named rocks the sitting bones, furniture for watching blessings sail away. Your lungs drag in brine, air sharp as unspoken vows. The gulls return as Dusk's envoys, their verdicts lost in the rustle of wings, pretending to be rain. Your left boot tears free first, sand cascading from its sole like miniature avalanches. Right foot follows in slow revolt, each grain a barnacle, clinging to your resolve. Some claim Viking launch rituals required dragging ships over thralls' backs. But history prefers its metaphors toothless. The tide inches closer, a salesman edging his sample case onto your porch. 47 steps now stretch between you and the ship, though counting them feels like cheating. Your kneecaps hum with old gym injuries, high school volleyball's final revenge. Archaeologists found a longship buried with 30 pairs of shoes, none matching. All left-footed, the sea wind plucks at your collar, impatient fingers, undoing a button you hadn't fastened. Tar fumes swim in your periphery, black serpents twisting through salt air. You spit, the globule sinks into thirsty sand before reaching the tide line. 9th century Norse, laws demanded 3 witnesses for a ship's naming. Yet your christening needs no audience. A wave slaps the hull, wood answers with a timbre deeper than its years. Your pockets hang slack, no coins for Karen, no breadcrumbs for the return journey. Scholars debate whether Vikings greased their hulls with walrus fat or seal oil, the difference between gliding and slogging. You press a hand to your sternum, feeling ribs mimic ship's timbers under a carpenter's mallet. 3 gulls land where your footprints retreat, judicial committee in mismatched formal wear. Cold seeps through your soles, reminding you why medieval Scandinavians lined boots with dried seaweed. The ship's shadow stretches eastward, a sundial pointing toward all the wrong hours. Your tongue finds the groove of a missing molar, ghost tooth aching for meat it never tasted. Wave foam paints lace patterns on sand, bridal veils left to bleach in the sun. You crouch, palms splayed like starfish, trying to root in unstable earth. Someone's going to beachcomb that Oarlock in 8 centuries, their thesis riding on your shoddy craftsmanship. A 1980s replica longship sank off Newfoundland. Crew reported hearing laughter in the rigging as it went under. Sand grinds between molars, breakfast's gritty after-party lingering past its welcome. Standing exhausts you more than the night's labor, muscles voting unanimously for mutiny. Your shadow merges with the ship's, Siamese twins sharing a single silhouette doomed to part. Historians still argue whether dragon-prows got removed before landfall, or if they scared the locals on purpose. Salt crust stings your eyelids, every blink a slide show of crappy decisions. The hammer lies where you dropped it, a teen sulking after its big moment. You count 6 heartbeats before recognizing the shape as a tool and not a carcass. 13th century sagas mention ships refusing to sail, until blood consecrated their decks. Yours just needs an awkward pat. When did your hands start trembling during the 10th peg, or the 17th lie to yourself? Breath fogs despite the season, August air doing cheap impersonation of a Norwegian spring. You unclench your jaw, a joint pops like a walnut under a throne's leg. They'll call this ritual abandonment in future textbooks, never guessing you simply forgot how to board. A crab side-eyes your hesitation, crustacean therapist billing by the half-shell hour. 20 paces north, woven grass mats once cushioned shipwrights, knees, threads dissolved into hungry soil. Your fingers dig for echoes of that craftsmanship. Find only thorny beach rye and apathetic worms. A wave sluices through the Oarlock, testing your work with the mockery of a seasoned critic. Your shoulders tense, ready to fight the tide for custody of something that was never yours. Light shifts. The sun bleeds through clouds in spears that miss every vital organ. You count the Oarlock's revolutions as waves nudge it. 13 spins before the tide ebbs. Medieval merchants sold storm nails blessed by deaf priests, guaranteed to outlive the fools who bought them. Your right pocket holds 3 such nails, cold against your thigh through the fabric. Someone carved initials near the mast, 1990s block letters, defying 8 layers of varnish. You trace the T and are wondering if they're lovers or launch codes or last regrets. The wind shifts, bringing peat smoke from some phantom hearth further down the coast. Your souls leave braille messages in the sand, nonsense verses in a language your heels invented. Dusk arrives uninvited, spilling ink over the eastern horizon like a penitent forger. You take 3 steps backward. Dance moves from a sophomore year you'd rather forget. The Longship's sail sags, too empty to even mock your indecision. They found a navigator's skeleton, still gripping his sunstone in Greenland permafrost, fingers fused to the crystal in death's bad joke. When did sitting become an option? The sand accepts your weight like a grudging lover. 8 waves later, your hip bones sing with the chill of accelerated entropy. That guy who rebuilt the Miklabust ship drank mead from a replica horn for months, claimed it recalibrated his gut flora. You lick salt from chapped lips, dietary supplement of the damned. Night birds replace gulls, their calls lower, meaner, tuned to your frequency of failure. The Oarlock creaks, a bored teenager swinging legs from a cliff's edge. Your spine memorizes each timber's curve, blueprint etched in ache and rationalization. Historians will call this preservation. You know better. Taxidermy always leaves the eyes too glassy. Your teeth sketch runes in the air, spells for cowards and crownless kings. The breeze catches them, carves nonsense words in dune grass 1/2 mile inland. A Connie Willis novel taught you more about time travel than these ruins ever will. Knees crack as you rise, percussion section for the world's saddest brass band. 14 hours ago this beach held nothing but gulls and your worst impulses. Now it hoards ghosts like a thrift store collects bad lamps. You kick a stone, watch it skid tumble plop into the shallows. 9th century ships cardboards their cargo, including honey, tears, and futures that refused to compost. The hammer winks at you, its head half buried in mocking obeisance. You choose the northward drift, path of lemmings, pilgrims, and men who forget their phones. 30 steps unspool before you check over your shoulder. The ships become a charcoal smear on twilight's cheek. Viking law-demanded travelers sing while departing ditties to scare off malevolent tides. Your hum sticks to your teeth, a listless mosquito nobody swats. Something clinks in the waves, maybe your courage, maybe a beer canned from happier tourists. Either way, it's not coming back. Dune grass whips your shins, nature's way of saying pick up the pace. You pocket a pebble worn smooth by dead sailors' footsteps, pet rock for the therapist's waiting room. Far out, a dorsal fin breaks the surface. Judge, jury, and executioner in a wet suit. Your shadow stretches impossibly long now. Inkblot test. Only a lighthouse could decipher. The beach curves ahead, a comma inviting you to pause forever. Shipbuilders buried their dead in vessels pointed toward mythic homelands, compasses rusting in perfect futility. Your boots skid on kelp, improvised baptism for the chronically undecided. Stars prick the sky's fabric, each pinprick leaking faint light onto the waves. You count 7 before stumbling. Untied lace, whispering sweet nothings to the mud. Salt air crystallizes in your lungs. Installment plan for a future case of emphysema. The tide's rhythm syncs with your pulse, annoying metronome for a song nobody wrote. Cold seeps up through your soles, ground sucking warmth like a toddler with a juice box. There's a 1943 photo of workers launching a replica ship, all smiles and rolled sleeves and imminent torpedoes. You zip your jacket, insulation failing against regrets that predate antifreeze. The pebble in your pocket grows heavier, geological interest compounding by the minute. A drone buzzes overhead, some influencer's eyeball judging your retreat. You flip it off with Viking-level commitment, middle finger, a mast against modernity's squall. Dawn's first bruise purples the horizon, taunting your all-nighter with its fresh start. Your legs move mechanomically, piston rods stripped of purpose. They'll find your footprints at low tide, perfect impressions erased by a sea that can't decide either. The road appears like a cheap punchline, asphalt bandage on the coast's ragged edge. Your truck waits, driver's seat buried under food wrappers and compromises confetti. One hand rests on the door handle, cold metal shock to the system. Behind you, waves swallow the beach in increments, a wet eraser on carbon paper. Somewhere beyond the dunes, the Longship endures its unwanted resurrection. Historians still argue whether Vikings feared ship burials or recognized them as the universe's recycling program. Your key turns in the ignition, engine roaring to drown the sea's last whispered plea. The engine's growl splits the dawn, a chainsaw through vellum parchment. Your knuckles bleach white on the wheel, ship's shadow shrinking in the rearview like a retreated promise. 9th century navigators used sunstones to read clouds, but no crystal reveals why finished things hurt more than broken ones. A bump jars your spine, suspension, protesting the coastal road's half-hearted asphalt. You pass a weathered sign picturing berserkers, its paint peeled into accidental abstract art. Scholars still argue whether dragon-prows warded off spirits or just looked rad crashing through waves. Rain spatters the windshield each drop, exploding like tiny ships on a windshield fjord. The defroster wheezes its breath, fogging the glass more than clearing it. Your throat clutches a joke about Longship Uber ratings, but the punchline sinks like a stone in the North Sea. Mile markers blur green sentinels counting down to whatever comes after purpose. Your glove box hides a chocolate bar from better times, its caramel veins fossilized into archaeological layers. They found a Viking merchant buried with a falcon, talons still curled around a silver thread, leading nowhere. Fields rise where forests once stood, lynxless stretches bristling with cell towers. Your phone buzzes, a notification about medieval memes as you pass a dairy farm. 800 years from now, will they puzzle over your tire tracks or just photosynthesize through the plastic? The coastal curve finally relents, road thrusting inland like a spear hurled by Odin's accountant. You pass a diner's neon mermaid, her neon tail flickering promises of burnt coffee and weak epiphanies. A curbstone jars the axle your lunch leftovers shift in their grease-stained bag. Townsfolk wave as you crawl through Main Street, their smiles sharp as figurehead prows. You nod, chin dipping like that faulty Oarlock you spent 3 hours realigning. A kid on a bike licks an ice cream shaped like Mjolnir, the treat already melting into a sticky divine mess. Your gas gauge mocks in glowing orange, modern runes warning of hubris and neglected errands. The radio coughs alive, weatherman predicting storms your bones, already catalogued hours ago. Vinland's shores felt this cruel irony, explorers seeding barley in soil that laughed at their efforts. Sun climbs proper now. Its beams pick apart your dashboard like a forensic team. Exit signs yawn with familiar names, each off-ramp, an escape pod you lack the will to deploy. Archaeologists debate whether Vikings used hallucinogenic mushrooms during voyages. Your coffee breath suggests different modern coping strategies. The highway stretches infinite, a gray tongue licking up continents. You check the mirror again, horizons smudged where sea and sky consummate their daily affair. They'll write papers about your repaired Oarlock, never knowing it took 14 tries and 6 swear words invented in the moment. Tires thrum a ballad of departure, asphalt harmonics tuned to resignation's key. Your chest tightens, ribs forming a longship's hull around lungs full of unsung stanzas. All navigation myths agree. The cruelest course lies between what's mended and what moves. A rest area materializes, its picnic tables bolted to concrete like truths to denial. You park sideways across 2 spots, minor rebellion against the purity of completion. The ship drifts further behind now, its silhouette now just a hypothesis sketched in rearview mirage. Wind riffles through a gum wrapper, its dance more graceful than your entire night's work. You sip from a lukewarm soda, can bubble assassins fizzing across your teeth. Farmers in the 900s stewed lichen to dye sails blood red. A hue your taillights now mimic in reverse. Keys jingle as you walk toward vending machines, their hum promising processed absolution. A lone raven eyes your progress, tick-tock of the damned, playing on loop in its obsidian gaze. Your reflection in the glass shows a stranger wearing your exhaustion like a borrowed cloak. Coffee button sticks. The machine groans, as if scalded by your mediocrity. Quarters fall with the finality of coins on a dead woman's eyes. Some say longships carried live eagles to release near land, feathered compasses screaming toward shore. You crunch a stale cheese curl soundtrack for the unheroic return. Back on the road, semis blast past their wake, rocking your truck like a toy in a bathtub. Exhaust fumes mix with salt still crusting your hair, perfume of the defeated. That museum in Oslo displays a preserved longship named after a dead king. Glass case, ensuring it'll never taste wave wind again. Your windshield cracks its first wrinkle, frost branching like Yggdrasil in time-lapse. Blinker ticks like a metronome for all the truths you'll never speak aloud. They found a chieftain buried upright in his ship, so he'd greet Ragnarök standing. You'll settle for meeting tonight's insomnia, fully horizontal. The city stench hits first, exhaust and ambition, souring the brine, still clinging to your cuffs. Traffic cones swarm a construction site, their orange shells screaming warnings you're too tired to decode. A billboard sells Viking cruises, photoshopped warriors sipping Mai Tais under plastic helmets. Your apartment door sticks, old wood, warped by seasons of half-hearted comebacks. Keys hit the bowl with a clatter, maritime funeral bells for promises kept. The shower runs cold, each droplet a baptism into lesser versions of yourself. You press palms to steamy tile, Shipwright's calluses softening under modernity's relentless drip. Through the bathroom window, dawn's properly awake, now golden hour lyre, gilding everything it touches. Your phone lights up with a calendar alert. Grocery pickup, 9 a.m. Historians still argue whether Norse traders preferred linen or wool for their undergarments. You close blinds on the daylight, horizon's rebuke, reduced to slivered yellow lines, mocking your surrender to errands. The bed claims you, mattress sighing louder than any repaired Oarlock. Somewhere, tides rise. Elsewhere, a pristine longship gathers dust in academic slideshows. Here, your dreams stitch sails from stolen breath and maybe tomorrows, always maybe tomorrows. The road's murmur softens now, a lullaby hum beneath tired wheels. You coast past birch trees bowing like old shipmates, their leaves whispering secrets the wind forgot to keep. That repaired Oarlock rests silent in cargo, its brass fittings cooled to the touch dreaming of saltless stillness. Streetlights bloom like grounded stars, each halo softening the edges of every unspoken vow. Your hands relax their grip, palms relearning the shape of surrender. Far out at sea, moonlight stitches silver threads through waves, a tapestry rolled up and stored till next voyage. Somewhere beyond the highway's hum, your longship waits patient in the mind's shallows, its hull humming promises of kinder tides. Breath deepens, night song weaving through your ribs like caulking, filling cracks you stopped counting long ago. Let the road blur. Let the stars unclench. Let all that's been mended rest. Wind combs the grass to sleep, whispers merging with dashboard static. The world tilts gentler here, horizons dissolving into the warmth of closed eyelids. Stillness pools in your collarbones, an inland sea cradling what remains of the night's labor. Sailors called it half-villa, the moment waves and sky become one. You call it enough. Morning will come not as a conqueror, but a scribe etching tomorrows in pale ink. For now, let silence be your rigging. Let the tide within you forget its compass. Drift, repaired, until the next repair begins.